Hello, and we are back with the cast and crew of Love and Work, a new low-budget, minimalist, um, absurdist comedy about a alternate reality in which it is illegal to work and the secret society of job seekers who form an underground network seeking employment.
Network, exactly.
Yes, yes. And so the first thing I think we should do is simply have everyone introduce themselves, starting with Pete, and then we'll go around clockwise.
My name is Pete O's. I am the director, producer, and one of the writers of Love and Work.
I'm Will Madden. I'm one of the co-writers and actor in Love and Work.
I'm Frank Mosely, and I'm one of the actors in Love and Work. I play the role of Hank.
All right, Hank the boss.
Hank the boss, that's right.
So when looking at this after watching the movie, naturally a number of things come to mind. I'd like to ask about the locations. I'd like to ask about the music. But I think because of the nature of the film seems to exist almost entirely to ask the audience to ask themselves questions about work and about the role of work in your life. And so I thought, let's just jump into the theme. And so I guess a way to start is to ask you all, do you like to work, and what kind of work do you like to do?
I mean, for me, yes, I love to work, and then I would identify as a workaholic, really. It is, and I get so much out of it. It's where I have my favorite relationships, or how those have blossomed in my life. It also helps me fight depression is by working. Also it supports me. It just pays the bills and puts food on my table. It fulfills so many of my essentials in life that I really do love work.
Okay. Will.
Yeah, I do too. I think I would also identify as a workaholic. I feel like work is good because it gets me out of my house and it gets me interacting with other humans, and it kind of I think in a way similar to my character Bob Fox. He loves this sort of community and fellowship and social interacting of work, whether it's creative or otherwise. For me, I think it's just healthy in a lot of ways. So I think anything that kind of gets me out of myself and into collaborating with other people is always the better option. So I try to throw myself into work, whether I feel like it or not. I know it's good for me at the end of the day.
Frank.
Yeah, third workaholic over here. We're all part of the same club. I love to work, but I think I find a real distinction between working in film, which is one of my jobs, but then I also have lots of other jobs that I do on the side. Like I'm a substitute teacher of elementary school kids, and I love that because it gets me out of my film talk zone that I'm used to. You have a shorthand with people in the film industry, and you have to work with an entirely different group of people, with children. And so you develop, I think, with every job you had, you learn to develop a kind of communication skill and a shorthand that pertains to that job, and then you can hopefully apply that language to many other jobs that you have, just to communicate more effectively, and then hopefully also out of that develop great relationships like what Pete and Will were talking about.
And I also really think the most beautiful thing of work is that it can give us a purpose. It can give us a purpose in life. And then when work becomes a job, it starts to become bad when it's not just that it's something we don't want to do. It's when we start to sense that it's not necessary, it's not needed, it's busy work. And I think that's when starts to become disconnected from this potentially purposeful activity and just an empty waste of time.
I'm glad you added that because although I love to work too, you know, you love to work on things that you love to work on. You don't
Mm-hmm.
just love to work on any old thing. And there's a distinction between a work and a vocation and something that's just a job.
Yeah. I usually say I love to work, but I don't want a job.
There's a lot of satire
Mhm.
of the sort of office, although it's not set in an office, there's an office dynamic there. And there seems to be a lot of satire of the interview process and some workplace rituals in it. Giles, do you have a question?
Oh, just a quick dive in here before we explore the film further. I suspect that Greg and I are talking with three extroverted individuals here. You certainly agreed to come and chat with us and are talking about the joys of people at work. I was curious if you got input from any more introverted types in regards to how they felt about work, especially in contrast, especially since they as a sort of general rule, less enthusiastic about some of the dynamics you mentioned.
I hear you. I don't know if I actually would identify as an extrovert. Certainly opportunities to talk about the work, to talk about these things that we love is fun. But I also am a person who really loves and values alone time, being by myself. That is kind of like where I recharge my batteries.
Okay.
And did we talk to other people? I feel like the research for work, for love and work, is really just like living our lives and all the jobs we've ever had and all these sort of things. But with the awareness that different people do get different things out of jobs. Some people get like the social aspect of it. Some people don't. Some people like it for other reasons entirely. And that awareness was some of the things we would talk about when defining each of these different characters, what it is about the job that about doing work that they're specifically getting out of it.
Yeah, Diane certainly was very different from Fox in her hopes with this underground activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I can relate to Diane as well. I think a lot, being sort of half introverted and half extroverted, of like, her whole drive is about having purpose and having a thing to do, an accomplishment, and that almost has nothing to do with collaboration. It doesn't have to. And I can certainly relate to a lot of the, when you're making a movie and you're acting in something or writing, it's like you're often just alone creating something for days, weeks, months on end. And there's a different kind of joy in that kind of introverted revelry, like being alone with your thoughts and putting it into something else. It's a different kind of like safety and freedom, being like, I'm alone working on my thing, and I'm sort of free to explore anything and everything. And that's a kind of different introverted joy that I certainly can jive with as well.
What about you, boss man?
Once again, I kind of echo the sentiments of my buddies over here. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call myself an extrovert. Not to give any spoilers away with the film, but I think I appreciate a healthy balance between having my alone time and having your time off, and then knowing when you have to put in the work so that you can prepare for that, and then you can give to it fully, and you can fully invest in the work when you are doing it. So you're not half-assing it, in any way. And to kind of echo what Will said too, yeah, I think, there's a part of me that loves writing. Like I love writing and I like editing films, and those are very solo activities that I do. But then I love being on set and directing and acting with other people. It's a totally different kind of joy you get from that kind of creative work, but I like both.
Thanks. Yeah, glad you mentioned balance, and I'll consider myself 1.5 out of 3 for my prediction there. That's a sort of a later point. Greg and I were curious about like the inception of this. This is a a narrative exercise. It's an exploration of a certain idea that I haven't generally seen explored elsewhere. Would you be able to speak briefly on what sort of triggered you to pursue this fairly unique narrative here?
Yeah, so this movie and the movies I've been making lately, they always have first started with a location, just the location as being a place that's narratively inspiring in some way. and visually interesting, like a place I would want to film. And so I saw this warehouse space where the first shoe factory takes place, which was being managed by this really wonderful artist residency in Texas, in Corsicana, Texas. And they presented this space to me and said, if you have any ideas for this, let us know, and you're free to play. This was when I first saw that space, it was February 2021, I think, actually. It's when I first saw the space. And that planted a seed, but also that seed got planted. We're still kind of pandemicing at that point. We're still getting our I think we were still getting like the government stipend, or maybe they had just sort of ended. It's like the like existence that we had been experiencing of not working and just having all this time and what to do with it was very present in my mind at the time. And then I think also, and the thing that we're now even more into is the AI of it all, which is like the work that is being done by other things, and what does that mean for the things we're going to be spending our time doing, and just that we're just all these things that are obviously happening in the world. And so like just like that present moment and responding to it while standing in this literal physical space is kind of where all the atoms collided to birth Love and Work, which eventually blossomed through the collaboration with the actors who are also writers, and pitching just that little bit of an idea of these seeds with Will and with Stephanie. And then through those conversations, we figured out what the story was going to be. But that's the start.
So, I mean, we all agree that we like to work, but I think the movie is not the movie. We identify with the workers in the movie, the people who want to work against the oppressive society that's not allowing them to work. But yet there is certainly a level of pathology to these workers, and they are like drug addicts. And we specifically see, I think, Frank at one point it's like, withdrawing in an alley, because he wants to work so bad and he can't work. So I think it's pretty open-ended in that and this was maybe leading to the conclusion or the purpose of the movie, but there is certainly, I think, would you all agree, a pathological element to the workers in this movie, despite the fact that there are heroes.
Yes, heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think it's all varying. It's a spectrum, right? I think it's a varying degrees of obsession that binds all these people in this underground way, and that's actually maybe my favorite thing about the whole film and about the whole idea is that all these people that are bound by this addiction and obsession, and to what degrees do they fall, and to what degrees do they kind of rise up and try to redefine those terms,
Yeah, I think like I think we say like workaholism a lot, and in varying stakes and ways. So many of us can identify as workaholics, whether we like it or not. But it's also something that can be very dangerous and very harmful to like ourselves and people around us. And it's part of what was the most, to me, the most sort of interesting and fun part to explore the movie, of like, where has this become like a dangerous thing to ourselves, and when does it become an unhealthy thing, and what's the balance between how much you're willing to sort of risk and put aside and neglect, sometimes, like choosing work over relationships or over your own physical health, to engage in something that you have a compulsion to do, and weighing how much is that something really genuinely giving you something, or is it just behavior that's now become kind of a repetitive pattern that's can be harmful. And that's sort of the interesting sort of darker undertone that I really sort of like in the film.
I think we all we're all sort of like happily identifying as workaholics, but I think we're also just products of our capitalistic society that we live in, and we are reacting to what's around us, and I don't think it's healthy for our society that we all can identify as workaholics. I wish there was more balance within our lives, such that I didn't feel like I needed the work to give me to give me a reason to live. um, I don't, this is what I see in the world. This is what I see within myself. This is what certainly the art that we've made is reflecting and pondering and trying to understand what to do about it.
And just picking up on that a little, within the movie, the work that the characters do is worthless. It's just work to do work. It's make work, because the premise is that, everything is automated, and all products, you have enough products, you don't need any more shoes, and yet they simply work making unneeded shoes just so they can work. Does that I hate to, bring this into a critique of capitalism thing, but was that something that was on your mind?
Oh yeah, I'm often publicly identifying as anti-capitalist. The thing that I often find myself thinking about the world and people and the situation that we have arrived at and have created for ourselves is that it's very confusing. And I think we're all quite confused. And people who think they love work, like in the characters in this movie who seem to love work, and that they're making things that aren't needed, and they're just so disconnected. Which I think is also a thing that I feel from our world and our society, and we have all of our technology, and we have all of our Zoom calls, and we think we're more connected than ever, and I think very much we are not. I think we are less connected than ever, from the healthy things. So these people making shoes for no reason, is the point. Like, we are doing things, and why are we doing them? We're not. We've lost the thread. We have taken our hands off the wheel or something.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me. Last time I saw this, it was still Slam Dance days, so I guess this stuck in my memory pretty well. The montage for Diane's character when she's asked her favorite job, and you see the 3 or 4 dozen professions that she has partaken in over the course of her life, and it dives back, I think, to the very first one.
Yes.
Indicated on the title card of what she felt was most worth her while, which was, yes, sort of useless production, but to a more heartwarming purpose than crafting shoes. And also, I guess, considering the nature of the product in question, something about what is going to be happening with the future, since what she most enjoyed producing was for the younger generation, of whom we see absolutely none. I think everyone in this movie is around your guys' age, except for a couple older characters who wax sort of poetical about what their parents told them about the old days when it was just all work and nothing else. So yes, again with balance, which of course leads up to that what I feel is the ultimate purpose of this movie. But if I might dive back briefly to the dark, you mentioned like a dark side of things. I was absolutely intrigued by the malevolent sort of element in this film in the form of the reminders. I was hoping that you might be able to chat a little bit about their inception and maybe a little further what they're kind of up to, because they're just kind of there and respected, but as with much in this movie, it's sort of left to the viewer to try to conceptualize the gaps there.
Yeah, what do you remember about the inception of the reminders of these authority figures?
I mean, I remember we talked about the characters kind of having this childlike innocence and naivete, where they're sort of playing at the office roles and the archetypes of having a job, almost like kids playing office after seeing their parents come home with, in their suits or whatever, and thinking about like these characters, what would it take to be really threatening to these people, and almost like a parental figure coming in we have found these orange vests and just kind of, sternly shaming them was sort of like incredibly high stakes for these characters. and being put in, you know, the timeout center and being literally put in timeout, and kind of that was enough to really shake, you know, imbue the fear of them, you know, and the stakes of how dangerous it is for them to be secretly, you know, doing this activity and having 3 strikes, and just like these things that were such huge deals when we were little kids that were terrifying to be put in timeout or during recess or whatever. So I remember being, you know, when we were coming up with the idea of who's policing this place, who are the government officials, etc. That it almost takes form in sort of like stern teachers coming in to sort of break up the party, and that was that's sort of all it took in a society where, you know, however the algorithms and government, wherever this you know, oppressive authoritarianism, you know, government comes into place, all they need to really put to freak us out is pretty low stakes to our society, but something that would freak these people out. Just kind of being parents coming in to shame us in a way.
I remember that being tied in even with our wardrobe search when we were all going out to the thrift stores together to find the wardrobe that matched our characters. And when I remember first going in, I remember, oh, I got to find something. If this guy wants to be a boss so much, he's got to have clothes that fit him because he wants to look presentable and like really like put together. And Pete was like, no, no, no. He's like, it's even better if it's like a baggy shirt 3 times your size and you end up looking like Charlie Chaplin. He goes, because then you really are playing dress up. And we never talked about what happens after you get so many strikes. It just keeps, it's like a cyclical nature. It's funny because then it just takes on such a playful tone within the world, but then I feel like that playful tone permeates the actual experience of watching the movie, and it has a very playful tone because of the gamesmanship, the kind of games that are in hand in this childlike way. There's like an innocence to it, and a little slap on the wrist kind of tone with the reminders.
I also remember like a lot of early conversations were often around like what is a job, and even with these people who are essentially police officers in this world, you know, these authority figures, the reminders, it's like, well, aren't they doing a job? And it's kind of confusing, but we do clarify it in the movie. But it is rooted in this idea of just like people are always going to need things to do. Like everyone needs something to do. That's why we have streaming services, because it's like, what are we going to do? We just need to keep filling time. And as we have AI to do all these things for us, we end up with more and more free time. And so it's like, well, let's get more and more content on our screens so that we can just fill that time. Not healthily, but we are needing to fill that time. And so to like recognize that one of the ways that some people are going to fill time is not necessarily some sort of like self-sufficient activity. It's going to be going around and like raining on other people's parades. like that's going to be somebody's choice for how to spend their time.
Yeah,
Well, and just like, and like, luckily within this societal framework, what their way of spending their time is allowed, is like supported, is beneficial to the machines, to the AI, but you know, the people who are doing these things that aren't necessarily helpful to the AI's end goal, those things are not so allowed.
Yeah, keeping the busybody class busy, I suppose, is probably one of the top things for any control inspired individuals. Keeping checks on those. Yeah. The reminders were absolutely fascinating. The hall monitors of the world going around,
right,
and giving people strikes for being naughty is.
And you know, and like people are power hungry to like, just like it's a human thing to like want power over people, and it's probably because of some insecurity that they have, and but it's so real. There's so many people that do that, and when I see them, I wonder what is going on. Why is that? How they're choosing to spend their time. What they do.
So you talked about AI, and I suppose in this future, that's the explanation for the reason why people don't have to work. But it does, also pose a question of of how close are we to this reality? Because we always, technology always saves labor, and people lose jobs, and it is possible certainly to imagine a future where there isn't work for most people. If you want to do creative work, that's fine. If you don't, then what happens to you? I mean, what are you going to do?
Also, the AI is taking the creative work too. They're actually taking the jobs we want, but they're not taking the jobs we don't want. I mean, I don't like, we are there already, it's like, how close are we? Like, we're kind of there. Every morning when I leave my apartment, my neighbor, like in the door of my neighbor's apartment across the hallway, there's like a DoorDash bag waiting of like whatever their boxes of food for that day is. And in Love and Work, in this movie, there's these like paper sacks of lunches just like sitting around. And when we did it, I hadn't actively seen, just because like what my living situation was, I hadn't had these like DoorDash delivery services as like kind of present in my mind. Because we're doing this, and it's like, well, where do those bags come from? And we're like, I don't know, like a drone or something drops them off, or just like, who knows? The AI figured that out, and magically somehow every morning something has dropped off my neighbor's meals for the day. Like, it's already happening. Like, we are there. It's something I definitely think about a lot, of like, what are we going to do with our time? As the AI does more things, and we're like kind of fighting back, but we also don't want jobs. Like, also people like who have a job, but like we like complaining about a job. That's the other good thing that you get out of having a job, is you get to complain about it. So, I often just wonder, like, what problems are we trying to solve, and who is it? What is it serving? Because I often don't think it's actually serving. I don't think it's lately serving humans. I think it's
Certainly not
serving.
many humans anyway.
Yes. What do you guys think? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No.
You are the director.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, like every sort of utopia, the great novels and movies and stuff. It's like, oh, it's a utopia, and then the story unfolds and you figure out it's a dystopia. And there's something about this, as like what you said, Pete, about AI and our. We're not just having robots pick out plastic out of the ocean. We're having them write screenplays. We're having them do the creative work that, in my idea of a utopian society, great. You've got UBI, we've got food, everybody's covered, we're all great, and now we can revel and play and make art. But where we're heading is like they're sort of taking care of everything and not giving us what we need. So it's sort of like this. Well, what's even the point of all this, of injecting the algorithms and AI to take care of us, if we're not going to be free to explore and do what we actually want to do and live in the Star Trek utopia that we hope to be in. So it's just fun and interesting to sort of ask those questions around, because I think, like, wow, if I had rent covered, everything covered, health's great, medicine, science, we're all groovy, let's act and make movies. But if it's like, but you can't do that because the robots are also doing that, you have to kind of sit in your room and just exist. That's kind of the
just watch the content that the robots made for you.
Watch the AI Netflix show that's awful, but it's been 50 years since there's been something good, because it's all AI stuff in the future. So we don't know the difference between what's good and not. So we just matrix plug into the machine.
The robots are like, but you love it. Like, we based it off of what you like. You should love everything we're showing you right now.
Yeah.
But they'll still be the ragtag theater groups and alleys, just like in this film, like trying to have live theater performances. It's like, what's the Pixar movie where the people are like in the bubbles and they
Wall-E.
float around? Was it Wall-E?
And the end of Wall-E.
That terrified me. That terrified me. Like that, I fester if I don't have something to work on. So the idea of something leading toward this world of Wall-E, where everything's just given to you, you just absorb things to live, but you're not really living or having that kind of activity and execution from an idea in your mind, and you apply it and you actually create or you finish a task. I find that frightening for me personally. So like when I saw that in Wall-E, it was like a horror film all of a sudden.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think it's certainly important to everybody to have a good balance of short-term gratification, which you get from leisure and doing things you enjoy, and to also have long-term gratification that you get from working and then achieving something and then getting a sort of much less frequent, but sort of deeper gratification. And you need both in your life, which I think is what the film is arguing for. And, you know, we are, as we record this, we are approaching the weekend. So perhaps, do you guys all looking forward to the weekend?
I
It's a little in joke, I guess, but
I hear it's the answer to all your troubles.
Yeah.
right.
I'm so spiritual journey to finding what the weekend is for me, because in the literal sense, I'm always working on the weekend, whether it's a service gig or auditions or acting jobs or something. So I just have never had a feeling, maybe since high school, have I had a feeling that Friday like means something exciting. It's like always been like my weekends are like Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So I always feel like when I'm kind of free, everyone else is at work. And then when the weekend comes, I'm sort of working. But I was going to say a quick point of like that I just thought about having in a while of like it's like the green zones or blue zones around the world where people live to be like well into over the hundreds. And they did this study where they saw all the different societies where people just had these full, healthy, long lives. And they did the Venn diagram. What are all these places around the world doing the same? And some of them was like specific diet, sort of Mediterranean sort of diets, or having grandchildren in their lives. But I remember a big part of it was like these people who continue to have a job or a craft that they worked at like every day, and that gave them a purpose and a discipline and something to do, that it wasn't just you turn 70, 80, these days 70, 80, 90 and retire and then just kind of sit around twiddling your thumbs, but continue to really have something that gives you purpose and discipline. And that brings something to your life to make you healthier and live longer. Something really interesting about that maybe the science is still out, jury's out on that, but that's something to think about.
Good.
I definitely miss the weekend. And I know part of it is because I don't work a traditional job where I don't have that kind of like structure of what work days are and weekends are. And I do also remember how good it felt back when I was in school, and you did have this like feeling of Friday, and then you also had this terrible feeling as Sunday was ending, that you're like, oh no, it's going back. But like that kind of like is healthy, I think, to like feel those things. And again, to bring up the kind of like weird era that we lived through of the pandemic, when for that time we also even more so got this like wash of all days are the same, work days, weekends, and I just don't think that's I don't think that's ideal for. It makes the good times not as good. It makes the bad times not, it's just like it just flattens everything. And it's because of the rat race that I'm in. Like I can always justify working through the weekend. I feel this thing in my brain says like, no, this is your chance to get ahead. This is your chance to, catch up with whatever it may be. And I want to break that. And I kind of have to actively say no to working through the weekend, for my own mental benefit, even though it like doesn't feel right. It feels wrong to like not work for 2 days.
All right. Well, we got just under 4 minutes left. So quickly, I would like to ask you guys, what is the future for the movie Love and Work? Is it going to be available? Do you have any immediate plans for it?
Its immediate plans is it's going to be playing some more film festivals. Next up is Film Fort, this film festival we really love in Boise, Idaho. And it'll play some other festivals domestically and internationally throughout the year. And then hopefully we'll secure some sort of release distribution thing. At the very least, I will just put it on the internet so people can watch it. But in the current state, it's doing its little festival run.
Wonderful. Well, we like to close on a question, and since there are three of you, we're going to have to kind of dive through this quickly. If you could
Great.
answer these for me, what's your hometown, and can you recommend a restaurant there?
Findlay,
So-
Ohio. Yeah, Findlay, Ohio, small town in Northwest Ohio. And I would recommend Wilson's. It is the original, the urban legend is that it's the original Wendy's, that Dave Thomas went to Wilson's, ate that hamburger and said, "This is, I'm going to copy."
I'm from Peachtree City, Georgia, south of Atlanta, and Ted's Montana Grill. That's the place I used to go to. Great burgers. It's right in a shopping center. It's a great day.
Arlington, Texas, right there nestled between Dallas, Fort Worth, and there's a place that popped up called Corky's Pizza around the time I was in college. It's on the south side of town, and they have the wood brick oven fired pizzas that they pull out. And pretty much every time I go back home and see my parents and family, we try to go out there, get some dinner. So highly recommend that if you get a chance to check it out.
Thanks. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Excellent. Well, we do have just a minute left to say goodbye. So I would like to say it was really a pleasure to talk to you. It didn't feel like work at all to sit here
You
and
could
have
feel
this-
the love.
Thank you very much for being here. And we know you had some other movies that we didn't even get to talk to from the past that I think you had all worked on. But hopefully we'll see you again in the future. And so I'm going to say goodbye and thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much as well.
Great
Thank
to
you.
you.
Don't work too hard.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's a great time.